Well, hello, fellow rednecks. Hey, this series is going to be about building a kind of a treasure box. See, I have a son, an adult son, who lives in a care center because he has some issues. Now, one thing he needs is a little secure box to put his laptop, computer, and other valuables in that he can close up. Now, the care center there they provide, things like lockers and places to put things in a buffet drawer and everything. But for something that's secured, that'll hold some valuables, I have to provide that, or we have to go buy it or something. Now, they'll reimburse it, but the problem is I just can't find anything that works. What I need is something that will hold a large laptop computer and maybe a few other things, like a shaver and things like that, but something with a key that's, the size of a laptop computer, a large one. And I can't seem to find one. So what I'm going to do is build one. And I'm going to try to make it look somewhat, decorative, like a treasure chest a little bit. So we'll try to see what we can do. Now I've got some hardware here, as you can see. There's some hinges. I'll have to open those up, but they've got rounded corners on them. So you can see those rounded corners. So I thought that was rather stylish. And then I found this lock. And I was thinking about, a padlock, but this is a lock like a hasp and a loop. But what it is it's got a key here, and you turn that with, when you put a key in it, and it locks it up. So you don't need a separate padlock. So this is kind of cool. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, the first thing is I've got to get the footprint of this box down. Now, I went down to the local hardware store and I bought that piece of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, and it's furniture grade on one side. Actually, it looks like it's sanded good on both sides. Anyway, this is going to be the top and bottom, but maybe I'll change that a little bit. But what I need is, this is 2 foot by 2 foot. And I don't need it that big. What I need it to be is something like, I've measured laptops, and generally, they're just not bigger than 12 inches, length or width-wise. But they get to be 12, 13, maybe 13 inches or something like that, lengthwise. So I need something that's at least 12 inches and wide, and something that's 14, 15 inches wide. So this thing looked like, to me, this was going to do the trick. So what I need to do is, because this has all been squared up and cut already, I need to cut this basically in half, so that I get the 12-inch width. And then I'm going to get I'm going to get the 12-inch width, and 12 inches is big enough for any laptop width-wise. So what I'm going to try to do is cut it right down the center on my table saw, and I'll probably have to do a little smoothing up after that, because table saws are kind of rough. But the first thing I have to do is mark where 12 inches is. So I'm going to do that right now. And the way I'm going to do that is carefully use one of my tape measures and put 3 or 4 marks along the side here. Can't do that with gloves on. Okay, 3 or 4 marks down here. Carefully. Okay, now what I'm going to do is use this snap line to make a straight line across it. Right on the money. Now, the idea is, it's cold in here. It's 20 degrees outside right now, Fahrenheit. And this morning it was 0. Now this is, it's a little bit warmer in here, I think, but there's no heat in here. So I guess all it is in here is it's enclosed, so maybe it's a little warmer, but it's cold. So I've got a nice straight line on there, and I'm going to cut this down the middle, and we should get us, if I can do this straight, we should get us a nice straight cut there. So let me turn it this way so you can see me cut it. Not that that is that exciting, but that saw is making some funny singing noises that I've never heard before. And I think it's probably something to do with it being so stinking cold. Alright, so here we have our 1 foot wide pieces. Or this will be the bottom of the box. And the thing is, I don't need it to be 2 feet wide. As a matter of fact, that might be a little problem because it'll be, you know, kind of too big. So what we're going to do is cut it down to, I think 16 inches is probably about the right size. So there's 16 right there. And I put another one here. And another one there. Okay. Alright, so there's our bottom right there. And that's going to be the bottom of the box. Now this is 3/4 inch plywood. And it doesn't have to be that tough. But, you know, the reason I did that is because that'll make it heavy. And it's not as easily transportable, you know, and where my son lives, you know, there's a lot, it's for disability people that don't, you know, they have mental issues and things like that. So the bottom line is that this will take some abuse. Let's just put it that way. So, and the idea is this is going to be bolted down to the top of a set of dresser drawers that he has. And so we'll use that. Okay, now, so we've got the bottom. Now what we need to do is make the sides. Now, what I'm going to do for that, I bought 2 pieces of pine. And there's one, and this is I think 1 by 8. Let's see what it actually is. It is 7.5 inches, 7 1/4. So it's 1 by 8, and it's 6 feet long. And what I'm going to do is use this for the sides. Now the box doesn't really need to be this tall, but you know, I think if it's this tall, including the lid and everything, that's probably okay. So what we got to do now is cut this to lengths so that it fits around the side of the bottom here, because I'm going to attach this to the bottom. And you know, this is going to be the, if you can think, this is on the side, that's the bottom. It's going to be attached actually like that. Because if you do it like that, you know, the seam is hidden from the front view, and it looks better that way. So what I got to do is now the other thing I have to do is from the front, you know, I want to hide it on the front too, so that the front piece is going to overlap a little bit. And the back piece doesn't need to, because it's going to be facing the back and nobody's going to see that. So I want to have the back piece not visible, this back one here not visible from the side, so I'm going to make the side too long. And I want the side piece, you know, the edge of the side piece, not visible from the front. So the way to do that is we've got to cut this piece of pine so that it's one thickness bigger than, for example, to get the front, it's got to be actually 2 thicknesses bigger than the front here. So this here, it measures as exactly 16 inches. Now this board is 3/4 inches. So twice 3/4 is 1.5 inches. So I've got to cut this exactly 1.5 inches too big so that it covers the front edges of the sides that I'm going to be putting on. So let's do that. So 16 and 1.5 inches would be 17 1/2. So now, you know, there is some width to the saw blade. So I'm going to put the line right this chalk line exactly where it needs to be. Oops, messed it up. But I'm going to cut it slightly to this side of it so that it overlaps the edges just a little bit. And then, like I said, I can sand the edges off, and that'll be just fine. So now there's this front edge piece, and what's going to happen is this is going to be here like that. And as you can see, it on both sides, here, it overlaps both sides, and if I've cut it right, it overlaps 3/4 of an inch. So now you'll be able to see the seam here, but not from the front. And I'm going to cover this anyway with something else, some kind of facade. Now what I've got to do is measure 2 pieces back here, and to cut, for this 2 sides. And again, these things have to be, this only has to be 3/4 of an inch longer, because it's going to butt up. Okay, I got the 2 sides cut. And I had to, I checked it out and put this up here, I've got one more piece of pine here. And here it is. And what I'm going to do is just draw this right on here. And hopefully, if I do it well enough, I will cut this one exactly the same size as the base here. Let me put a pencil mark on it. Now when I go to cut this out, I'm going to have to be sure that I'm going to go right up to that line and not over it. I have to go right on that line, but just to this side of it to get this the right size. So let's try this. Alright, so I cut it. Now let's see how I did. I push this all together. Oh yes, I've got it right. I don't know if you can see that, but if you look on the inside, it's perfect. It's perfect. This is going to, the bottom of the box doesn't need to be this tall. So what I want to do is have like the top be maybe a couple inches down here, so that when you open it up, the top is part of the box too. Which means I'm going to have to split all of these pieces of wood that are the sides down the middle. Well, not the middle exactly, but down from the top a little bit. So what that means is I'm going to have to decide, well, how far down am I going to cut this? In other words, how tall do I want the top to be, and how tall do I want the bottom part to be? The top have to have enough area on here to attach the hinges. See, the hinges are going to go on something like that, and there has to be enough area to attach them. And the same with the lock. So it looks to me like if I measure this, how wide are these hinges? They are 1 3/4 inches wide. And this lock here, this hasp, let's see, is, I can get in here and just measure the bottom part. That's about the same. And so is the top part here, this other part. So what that tells me is if I make the top cut 2 inches, that'll be perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the top. Cut this board so the top piece is 2 inches long. So let's set the rip fence up. Here we go. And here we go. I'm going to cut this now. Okay, so now I got all 4 pieces, and let me kind of show you why I cut them this way. You see, imagine that's the front of the box. And what I'm going to have is the lid is going to have some thickness to it. So the lid is going to be like that. And when you open it up, the lid's going to open like that. Okay? Let's move on into the house. And I think that's about all I can show you from in here.